many people in this room have either been molested or heard about somebody in their church who was?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It is an enclosed world, and that world is dictated by the policies of L. Ron Hubbard, and those policies make paramount, always paramount, the well-being of Scientology, not the well-being of any individual. Anything that brings outside agencies inside the Scientology world to check to make sure that Scientology is doing the right thing is seen as an attack. So something as innocuous as a welfare check is seen as an attempt to bring down Scientology. Within that bubble, everybody is in agreement. And that agreement doesn't match with what society believes is normal, or what society believes is the things that should and shouldn't be done,
right,
or the reports that should be made, or how a rape victim should be treated, or how a rapist should be treated. When we were raised as Scientologists, the word pedophile didn't exist in our vocabulary. Everything that is crime in the outside world is reinterpreted into different language in Scientology. And you never even contemplate these things. You only look at it through this lens of Scientology. And when you're a kid, that's all you know.
Yeah, one of the things that L. Ron Hubbard did was to make Scientology extraordinarily self-serving. And one of his teachings is that the worst thing you could do to a person is to send them to a prison, a non-Scientology prison, because that would destroy them.
Every Scientologist truly believes if you put them in the hands of the psych-infested law enforcement and the judicial system, they are being doomed to an eternity of black hellhole. That only by putting them into the hands of Scientology is there any hope that that person will be saved. To turn someone over to law enforcement is a horrific crime.
Crime. And these words are used. Crimes, high crimes.
If something happens that would ordinarily be reported to law enforcement, it gets reported to OSA, the internal police force of Scientology.
We are taught the outside world is evil, and so as a young child, you think of the outside world as a very dangerous place. Your only recourse is to go to Scientology.
I was 13 or 14, and I was auditing an adult. He was about 30 years old, I think. And in one of our sessions, he began to tell me about a very particular time where he had committed the sin of molesting his 5 or 6-year-old niece.
And you were never taught to report this person as a pedophile?
No, because Hubbard never wrote it. And if Hubbard never wrote it, then you can't do it, because when you're a trained Scientologist, especially at a young age, you don't have to think. The thinking has already been done for you. And as an auditor, you go into your training routine. You go into the questions that you're supposed to ask them.
And it is, what did you do? When was it? Where was it? How did you do it? Who was there? Who missed it? Who do you think knew about it? And how many times? And it is a pattern that you have to learn. So
me as a 13 or 14-year-old kid asking a 30-year-old man, what fingers did you use? Did she, where did this happen? When did this happen? And very, very specific questions that I was trained to ask him. And it still haunts me. The images that came into my mind and the way that he was describing it was something that I will never forget. 14-year-old girls talking about the first time they masturbated, and it wasn't like they could just say that, oh, I just masturbated. It was like, well, how did you masturbate? How many fingers did you use? Were you using lotion? What were you thinking about?
When people think of sexual abuse, typically, especially child sexual abuse, what we think of is what we call overt sexual abuse. That's where someone is touching you, right? Like there's physical contact. What doesn't get as much attention is covert sexual abuse. That doesn't involve anybody touching anybody, but it's when a child is exposed to pornography or people having sex or sexually explicit conversations that are completely age inappropriate for a child. That can be just as damaging and traumatic. And what we're talking about is like institutionalized covert sexual abuse.
And they're charging $500 plus an hour for a
Right.
child to do this. So it's a monetization thing, because at the end of the day, it's a business. They come up with a program to sell you to fix that thing or to address it. There's no school, there's no institution that would ever allow this or that would ever consider that cataloging a minor's sexual behavior is in any way, shape, or form helpful for that minor.
But Joey, as a 13-year-old, at the end of whatever that was that you were doing with that guy, this 30-year-old guy, and he says, I'm molesting a 5-year-old girl, you forgave him.
I had to forgive him.
You gave him the blessing.
I had to give him the proclamation and power to forgive, which is exactly what L. Ron Hubbard says to do at the end of your confessional auditing.
Now, what they would have done is told him he needs to do a handling on this, where they will list specific steps for him to do. He's checked if I've remembered, he's gotten me to forgive him, case closed, job done.
In Scientology, there is a concept that you are fully responsible for everything that happens to you, and that no matter what it is, that you have done something to cause whatever is going on in your life, good, bad, or indifferent. And every Scientologist will explain to you the idea that you pulled it in.
You are raised to believe that anything that happened to you is because you did it in another lifetime to another, or something similar, or you've done something this lifetime to have received that punishment.
My mother began teaching us as she learned them and accepted them. Anything bad that happens to you was our fault.
When I was 11, I caught my dad literally cheating on my mother. I was upset about it, and my grandma told me that, you know, it was my fault.
What was your fault? That your
That my
father was
parents
cheating?
that my parents were probably going to get divorced because I caught my father cheating on my mom.
And your grandmother was a Scientologist?
Yeah.
Right.
I just remember, like, being devastated, just
Right.
devastated. The whole Scientology aspect of that, of truly, like, making you believe that you are at fault for everything that's happened, it really, really messes with you as a person. And, you know, I still struggle with that. But I still have that deep-rooted fear that, you know, I am a bad person and I'm not worth it. And I don't know why I'm here, honestly. I don't know how I've made it this far, because I wanted to give up many times. And I'm still trying to figure out how to, I'm sorry. You know, just be okay. That stuff didn't, that what happened to me wasn't all of my fault.
Well, none of it was your fault. You were children. Both of you. All of you there were children, and you were victims.
It's really hard emotionally, and yeah. So.
Scientology has brainwashed us all into thinking we're responsible for the condition that we're in. And, you know, we should just get on with it. You're dealing with people who don't realize that they were victims. When someone's been sexually assaulted, but everyone around them is saying that this is your fault, what emotional toll does that take on a person?
It essentially makes you start to question your own sanity. You knew in your core what happened, but when literally there's just an echo chamber around you of denial or, you know, gaslighting, it makes you start to even question if you're perceiving reality correctly. It makes you feel insane to a degree, you know, and it divorces you from your own trust in your core self and your own intuition.
Agent Ellis, hear a story like this.
I mean, it almost goes without saying. I mean, she's a victim. She's a victim of Scientology. She's a victim of a system that she got thrown into, but, you know, you did nothing wrong.
Thank you.
When people like you tell victims of Scientology that you were a victim and you've done nothing wrong, their first reaction is to go to tears because they have not been told that by anybody other than us. So I hope you heard that.
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, that and I believe you.
Yeah.
Because thank you.